Today we're going to dive into how our career transitions, our life transitions, and our relationship transitions can turn into a testimony of hope, growth, and new beginning. And let me first acknowledge, for those of you who lost a job or are facing a sudden career shift, these can be extremely difficult and traumatic experiences. I know it was for me, and I can certainly understand that it brings all sorts of confusing and conflicting emotions. On one hand, you may be in deep agony and grief at what was lost, but yet on the other hand, you may also be breathing a sigh of relief and have a new sense of hope simply because the situation you were in was toxic. So let's get comfy, let's get our Bibles, and let's dive into this topic of how we can turn our life transitions into a testimony. In whatever season you were in, whatever transition you experienced, I get it. Any change can be difficult. It takes time to get over the things that wound us. But here's the thing, God doesn't waste anything, not even our toughest moments in life, not even our transitions that we experience. How do we know this? Well, simply looking throughout Scripture, we see that God's infinite wisdom, power, and love are used for the good of His people, His creation, His children. He knows us better than anyone else. Psalm 139 even reminds us that He knows the number of hairs on our head. And we know that God desires good things in our lives because of that deep love that He has for each person who would come to Him in faith. When I have experienced different transitions in my life, whether they be career or personal, relational, or even moving across the country, I have seen God work in a few distinct ways. The first way I've seen Him work is He redirected me to a new purpose. Sometimes God calls us in a career change or life change to be redirected to something new, something we may have missed otherwise had we stayed in that situation. Maybe there's a different path He wants you on. Maybe He wants you to explore or find new skill sets and grow them because He's leading you to develop them for something in the future. The second thing I've seen God do is He's done growth and maturing of my faith through each transition, through each challenge I experience. And this new beginning that we're going into, oftentimes in the hallway moments, those waiting room moments that we find ourselves in when a door has closed, these seasons are the ones where we develop more growth and more maturity. And God works in and through us and shapes us and refines us more than we could have ever experienced had we remained where we were. Many times these transitions bring out the strengths in us that we didn't even know that we had. It's during these hard times that God can refine us, build our resilience, and prepare us for something greater. The third thing that I've seen God do in these seasons is prepare me for a new beginning. Maybe you've been wanting to start a business. Maybe you've been wanting to write a book. This may be your perfect time to do that and to get the ball rolling. Often when one door closes, a new door has been opening for you, and it's a door that's better aligned with the purpose and the future that you're going to be walking into. So let's keep our eyes turned towards that new door, turn towards what is in the future. Instead of going back, let's go forward. Let's trust God with this season as He's preparing something new in our lives. So how do you actually turn a difficult transition into a powerful testimony? I've seen this in my life many times where the transitions that I have, God ultimately brings me back to the things that He's already done in my life. He brings a new part of my story out in that moment and weaves it together with the previous chapters to speak about a beautiful work that He has been doing and He's continuing to do in my life. And while some transitions may not have been desired, others have. But even in those situations, I've seen God do something new. He's walked with me every step of the way to heal me from the hurt that was caused and to steady my footing on a new and even stronger foundation. One thing that I did in that season that has really helped me was to keep a small journal and write down the ways that God has been present and has shown me that He's been working in my life. And I will actually write down just a bullet point of what He's doing, maybe something I saw happen in my life that was only and could only be done by Him. And I remember to look back to see what He's done so that I can continue to be reminded of what He's done so that that will also strengthen me in the seasons when my faith maybe a little bit shaky, so that I can know that He has worked in the past and He will continue to work in the future. So here's some practical steps that have helped me to reframe my transition and grow through it and ultimately be able to share my story to inspire others. The first thing I had to do was I had to accept and process what happened. I needed to grieve what happened and reflect on everything that happened. I needed to be sad, happy, disappointed, and I needed to release all those painful feelings. But I didn't need to stay in the pain. I needed to prayerfully ask God to help me see a bigger picture and guide me through the transition. This season took months. I was so deeply hurt that even the mere thought of where I had come from, the pain I experienced, and the people who hurt me sent jolts of agony through my body with thoughts ruminating in my head that I just couldn't get out of. I literally was stuck in the pain, paralyzed by it, but with each day, with each prayer to God, which each bit of strength, which each moment that I continued to trust God with, I had not only continued to tell myself not to give up, but I began to heal. And as I began to heal from the pain that that season had caused, I was able to do the second thing, identify the lessons that I've learned. When you identify the lessons that you learn, even though the experience I went through had been deeply traumatic for me, I learned things through it. I learned that despite what people said about me, I was worthy. I did have the skills. I learned how to navigate the season that I was dealing with, all while experiencing an episode of depression. And I had to do that in a way that continued to allow God to work in and through me and continue to provide this courage and strength even while I was dealing with great pain and great difficulty. But I learned how to get through it with God. I learned that all the skills I had gained in the past few years actually was preparing me for the season that I'm in right now. It literally was a stepping stone I needed for the work that I'm doing right now. So take time. Take time to think about the lessons you've learned, the skills you've gained, and the things that God has brought you through in that season. Write them down. These experiences aren't wasted and they're part of your story. God is writing right now in your life this story, this new beginning. And right now, these lessons can be that stepping stone. As you go into this next season, take those lessons with you and trust that God is going to use them for the good that you are going to do in the next season. The third thing that I did was I sought God's direction for what's next. Throughout the season of transition, call it what you want, hallway moments or waiting room moments, but either way, I was in a season of waiting on God to act. Trusting that with every step I took, He was guiding me to something new, strengthening my foundation along the way, and continuing to be present with me in that moment. I spent time in God's word. I spent time in prayer, asking God to reveal the next steps to me and to help me through it. Give me the strength to go through it. Give me the courage to get through it. Give me the brave heart to get through it. Because each season, each step, and each moment, they brought with it new things. And they weren't always easy. Some of them were really difficult. So I needed God's strength to get through it in that moment. I needed Him to continue to guide me even when I may have been too weak to do so. In this season for you, it might involve exploring new career paths, going back to school, getting a certificate, maybe starting a new passion project. But whatever it is, even if you don't see the end in sight, even if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, trust in God's good work in you and that He is going to walk with you hand in hand through this tunnel, through this hallway moment, and through the waiting room until the next door opens. My go-to verse in this season was Proverbs 3:5-6. These verses say, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him and He will make your path straight." A Bible commentary literally said that this verse means trust in the Lord, literally trust in Jehovah. Another said, we must trust in the Lord with all of our hearts, believing that He is able and wise to do what is best. Those who know themselves find their own understandings a broken reed, which if they lean upon it will fail. Don't lean upon your own understanding and beg God to direct you. It is promised He shall direct your paths so that your way shall be safe, good, and happy at last. So let's trust God with this season. Let's trust that He's guiding us into this new place, that He's starting this new beginning, and He will be with us every step of the way. Step 4 in the process that I was going through was turning my transition into a testimony by reframing the challenges that I was experiencing, reframing the transition that I experienced into opportunities for growth. This reframing helps to shift your mindset from defeat into growth. And even if your situation doesn't change immediately, it will give you a little bit more strength and more peace in this season to make it through that next day or even that next moment. And finally, the 5th thing I did in this season of transition was I began to craft my testimony. One of my favorite things to do in and through all seasons is to journal. I love both long form and short form journaling. Long form for me is writing and letting my thoughts flow, sometimes flowing for 30 to 40 minutes long. Short form is simply just writing bullet points down of how God is working in your life and how you're growing and transforming in this season that you're in. Both ways of journaling have helped me to gather my emotions, my thoughts, and all that I'm thinking about and dealing with and going through onto a page. It helped me to let out all the things that I'm dealing with, to see what realistically is happening in my life and how I might need to care for myself in this season and how I might need to pray through it and allow God to give me the strength and the peace to get through the next day. One of the biggest things that I love doing is in the very beginning of a transition, and actually throughout most of my life, but mostly when I sense a season of transition happening, I start to write down what I call the fingerprints of God in my life. I take these journals that I have right here, and I use these journals as a way to write down those things that God is doing in my life. And it doesn't need to be anything big. It can simply be bullet points. But God's fingerprints in your life are those small, medium, and large things that you notice that remind you of God's presence. It's writing down what you see and how you see God working in your life, where you see His hand upon the situation. When you note these things down, just use a simple format. It helps you to go back when you want to review them to see them if you write them in a simple like bullet format versus going and writing paragraph after paragraph. Now, once you gain perspective on your journey, begin crafting your story. Share how God has been faithful, what you learned, and how He's going to continue to shape you through this season. Maybe it's something that He's done. Maybe it's something you've experienced, a miracle you experienced, or maybe growth and healing from a season that was deeply painful. You never know, your story can inspire others who are going through the same struggles. And there's not a specific formula for writing out your testimony. It's your story. Yes, there's a beginning, a middle, and the end. There's an intro, a body, and a conclusion. But within the story, it's yours. It's what God has done, and you're sharing what God has done in and through your life. Don't forget, God is working in your life, even if you can't see it tangibly. Explore how God might be shaping you through this season of transition. Remember, God's work in our lives isn't always visible in the moment, but there are some key ways to see that He's transforming you. Some of the ways that He's been transforming you in this season could be developing new skills and passions. Transitions in lives often push us to step out of our comfort zones, to go and do things a little bit with bravery and courage as we discover new talents and passions in our lives. In this season, oftentimes we experience faith and trust in Him. During transitions, we often rely more on God and even more deeply on Him. We develop a greater sense of trust and faith as we see Him provide and guide us, even when things are uncertain. This faith is a powerful part of your testimony. Just ask yourself, how is God shaping and molding you right now? How is He refining you in this process and preparing you for that new thing? And the third thing that God could be doing in this season is building empathy and resilience. Your struggles can make you more empathetic to others facing similar challenges. It also builds resilience, teaching you how to move forward even when the road gets tough. These qualities are so invaluable in career, in relationships, and even your personal walk with God. As I've been saying from the beginning, it's so important to stay hopeful, even when things aren't clear, even when the door that you're hoping is opening right now is not yet opening. Remember, a transition in life doesn't need to be the end of your story. It can actually be the beginning of a powerful testimony that shows God's faithfulness and his hand on your life, even in the hardest of seasons. So stay hopeful, keep trusting, and know that God's plan for your life is far better and more greater than you can ever imagine. So let's go be the beloved, let's live as the beloved, and let's radiate God's love everywhere we go. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you can get notified anytime we post a new video. Until next time, my friends, stay blessed and be loved.